It is officially week 0. College football is back, and I am pumped. I have got a big show for you guys. Welcome to Reaching for the Pylon. Today, I've got week 0 game breakdowns. I've got some hot seat talk. Which coaches do I think might cool their seats a little bit? And I have G6 games of the year to help us determine which of these teams is going to be the G6 representative in the playoff. There has been a lot going on in this sport. In this past week, there has been talks of litigation with NFL players being able to come back with the fifth-year rule, but I don't really care a whole lot about it. Why? Because the games are actually back. All this other stuff is going to be decided in courts and in the off season and things like that, and I don't really care. I'm ready to watch actual games on the field, and that's what I'll be talking about today. Now, before I begin, I think I did a poor job of giving you guys where you can find the content that I'll be putting out. It's on YouTube. You can find the full episode on YouTube and Spotify. You can find short clips on YouTube and Instagram, and you can find full segments on YouTube, and all of those are Reaching for the Pylon. If you search it up, you'll find it. Give a follow, give a like, and give me some of your feedback down below. What do you guys think about this college football season? What are you feeling? Let's have a discussion down below. Now, let's just get into it. The first game that I will be talking about is my game of the week. The game last episode that I would pick to go to on my college game day schedule, and that is Memphis versus UNLV. Two teams that I think have a lot of hope for this season. Two teams that want to make a push to be the G6 representative, and the winner of this game is going to get a key win under their belt. The opponent is going to be one that's going to add to their strength of record, and both teams want it. With all of that being said, there is absolute quarterback confusion that no one knows what's happening. You have for Memphis, Marcus Stokes or Aaron Nolan going to be the quarterback. Now, there hasn't been an official announcement, and there actually won't be an announcement. It'll just be that day, game day. You're going to see who's going out on the field, and that's an interesting situation. We'll see how that works out for them. And then on the other side, you have Jackson Arnold and Alex Orji, who Dan Mullen says are both going to play, and whoever comes out first just depends on the play call. This does not signal a lot of confidence for me from either teams, but obviously their coaching staff knows their situation better than I do, and so it'll definitely be interesting to see how they play this in the actual game. So looking at these two teams and the head coaches, you have Charles Huff versus Dan Mullen, and Dan Mullen being at UNLV in previous years, he has shown success here. UNLV is one of the favorites to be one of the best G6 teams. And so there is a track record of success here at UNLV. Charles Huff is kind of shown that he can kind of rebuild and revamp some of these teams. He was at Marshall, and Marshall had some pretty solid success, and then Southern Miss, and now he's moved up to being the Memphis coach. So definitely two coaches that I think should have confidence. I think both fan bases should have confidence in each of these guys. And then looking at these teams roster-wise, they have similar returning production. They had a similar recruiting class. I think this is going to be a very close game. And so when I'm looking at it and trying to determine who I think is actually going to win this, it's really hard. One of the things you want to look at is starting quarterback, and I have no idea what in the world we're going to get there from either team. That's pretty insane to think about, that we just don't know. And so I don't really have an edge to give for either of these teams. And so I'm just kind of going to go with track record and consistency at the coaching, and I'm going to go with Dan Mullen and UNLV to win this game. I think it's going to be very close. I think both of these teams are very similar. I would not be surprised if either of these teams have similar trajectories of year. So this is going to be a great game, and I'm very excited to watch it. I think more people should keep an eye on this game. Now, transferring from talking about Memphis versus UNLV, that is obviously a critical game for the G6. I've actually got 5 games for G6 teams that are going to be the most important throughout the year in determining who is going to be the G6 representative. And so I just took G6 versus G6. Some are conference opponents, some are out of conference, and this is going to be, whoever wins these games, it is going to be a big win for either of these teams that they're going to want to have. So in week 1, Liberty plays James Madison. James Madison being a college football playoff team last year. Liberty having pretty consistent success through a lot of coaching turnover. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. I think two teams that may not be like at the top of the list as far as teams that can make the playoff, but I think you could see either one of these teams in that conversation late in the year, especially for a team like Liberty. I think this is going to be a pretty significant game for them because they don't necessarily have any other games to really show their strength. So if they lose this one, they may not have a chance to win the rest of their games, and that like ranks them above another G6 team. This is going to be a very important game for them, and James Madison obviously wants this one as well, as that was a criticism of them last year making the playoff, was the lack of opponent strength. Then in week 2, talking about Memphis again, Memphis plays Boise State. Boise State coming off of their week 1 opponent with Oregon. Memphis coming off their week 1 opponent with UNLV. So it'll be important for Memphis to get this first game to get some momentum going. Like if they come in here 1-0, can they build off of this momentum? And then you look at them, if they beat UNLV and then also beat Boise State, they are by far the favorite in the G6. That would be a critical start to the season. And then you look at Boise State, probably going to lose their first game to Oregon. I don't think that'd be a huge shock for anybody. But, how do they play? Are they able to be somewhat competitive? Is it not a disastrous game? And say they do lose, they can come back and play Memphis, and can they bounce back from a loss in week 1 if that happens? And so this is going to be big. Boise State, I don't think they can go down 2 losses and start 0-2. I don't necessarily see them being able to recover. Maybe they can. I think this is going to be a very, very, very important game for Boise State in week 2. Now let's skip ahead to week 8. In the American, you have UTSA versus Tulane. And these are kind of two teams, more UTSA being like a second tier. There's some buzz around this team. It's like maybe this is a team that could represent the American Conference. And then Tulane kind of just being consistent at the top. Obviously losing Summerall, but I don't think anyone is expecting them to fade too much. So two American teams that could very well be in the picture. This is a conference matchup, and so it is going to matter of who's going to make that conference championship game. Obviously, if you're a G6 team, you have to get into the conference championship game to win. So that's going to be a key one, a key game. You have a team that has a lot of buzz versus one that's kind of just been a staple in Tulane going to the playoff before. And so that's going to be a very interesting game to watch. Now, in week 12, coming down the home stretch, I've got San Diego State versus Boise State. We had Boise State. We talked about them with week 2. Now you have San Diego State coming in, and San Diego State kind of always just being a solid team in G6, last year G5 ranks. Like, they can win a lot of against teams that they're supposed to beat. They're a fun team to watch. And then you have Boise State, who's expected to be the favorite. Can San Diego State elevate themselves? And if they do that and beat Boise State, especially if Boise State's having a successful season, that is going to give them a big boost in the rankings. That'd be a late win that could sit heavy in the minds of the playoff committee. That's going to be an important game for both teams. Boise State going to have to win it. San Diego State really wants that one to maybe catapult themselves to the next level of G6 ranks. And then our final game that I'll be looking at is Tulane versus South Florida back in the American. I think Tulane could have a very solid year. And then South Florida losing a lot to Auburn. Obviously, their coach Golish leaving. I think they're not primed for a crazy step back. I think that's going to be an interesting game to end the year with. I think there could be a lot at stake in that game. And so that's going to be a big one as far as who can make the championship game. I believe that game could have a lot of playoff implications. We talk about G6 here, and that is fun. I love the G6. I love all of college football, so I'm having a good time talking about that. Now, moving on to our next game prediction. Do you guys remember last year? Week 1, TCU rolled into North Carolina, and there was some buzz, there was some excitement for North Carolina, and it almost immediately went down the drain when TCU splattered them all over their home field. It was 48-14 last year. Well, the good news for North Carolina is Josh Hoover is not playing this game. They've got a new quarterback this year in Jaden Craig. They do return a decent amount of production, and they had a pretty decent transfer portal class that could come into play here. North Carolina is rocking with Billy Edwards Jr. as their starting quarterback. I'm just going to be honest, I don't hold a whole lot of hope here for North Carolina. And if you're a North Carolina fan, I find it interesting how you view this game. How do North Carolina fans think about this game? Do you want this to be a close game? Do you want North Carolina to squeak out an upset victory to kind of keep this Bill Belichick hopes alive? Or are you kind of hoping that this thing gets ugly fast so this experiment can be over? If you're a North Carolina fan, I'm curious what you think. Comment down below your thoughts about this, because I just don't know. I do not see a world where Bill Belichick is your long-term solution. I think North Carolina's got the resources. I think they can be a really good team. I don't think Belichick is the guy to lead them down that path. So I don't know if anyone's really rooting for North Carolina to squeak out this win. I think TCU wins really big in this game. Let's talk hot seat. Hot seat is a very common thing, very common talking point at this time of year. And it's not even really my favorite subject. I don't want coaches to get fired. So instead of putting pressure on coaches to perform well and me predicting that they're going to get fired, I've got some coaches that I'm going to give some encouragement to, that I think there is actually some hope of upward trajectory for 3 guys. I think this could be a good season for these teams and good enough to show that there is a future with these guys at the helm. And so the first coach that I think could really right this ship is Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. It's been a rough start to his coaching tenure. It has gone downhill every year. He has had horrendous luck at the quarterback position. It's almost insane how bad it is. And he also has had really bad luck with schedule. This year, you've got a quarterback coming in and hoping he can stay healthy. And from a schedule standpoint, not that bad. This is a schedule that, even if it's not the greatest team in the world, they can get through some wins and kind of get back on course. I can see this team going 8-4, and if they go 8-4, I think that's good enough for Luke Fickell to keep his job. And so, if I am a Wisconsin fan, I'm pretty excited about this year. I don't think it's going to be anything like insane. I'm not expecting any crazy upsets for them where they're like in Big Ten title conversations, but I do think they're going to turn the ship around and kind of head back the right direction. I think this could be a pretty good year for Luke Fickell. The next team that I think could also, or the next coach that could kind of cool his seat, and I don't know if I necessarily agree that he should be on the hot seat, but when people talk hot seat, he does come up a little bit. And that's Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. It's actually been an upward trajectory already, but still people aren't happy enough with what he's been doing. I think last year's team showed a lot of growth. I think he inherited a really bad situation. And so what does it mean this year? I don't think it's necessarily a favorable schedule, but what if they go 6-6? I definitely see that happening. What if they go 7-5? I think this is going to be an improved team. They were a tough team to beat last year. So if they can keep that moving forward and then come out on top in those key games, if Lebby can grow and mature as a head coach in his third year, I think you could see this team competing in games that many people don't think they're going to be able to compete in. And he's going to continue to build this team up, and I think he's going to be able to cool his seat down pretty substantially this year. I'm fairly high on Mississippi State, so I'm excited to see what they can do this year. And then the third coach that I'll be talking about is Lincoln Riley. This is such a tough position for USC because I think it's Lincoln Riley's best team that he's had. I think he has grown a lot as a head coach. I think he has recognized the areas that he has failed in the past, and I think he is at a place to put that all together, to put it all out on the field, and so that is a lot of good. If that's all I had to say, I think this could be a playoff team, and he would ultimately get to keep his job and continue building at USC. The problem is the talk is kind of playoff or bust for Lincoln Riley, which I think is a fair expectation. The problem comes with they play Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State all in one season, which means not only do they have to go 9-0 against the rest of their schedule and not allow for any upsets, they're going to have to beat one of those teams. And who's it going to be? This has been a team, one, that's not immune to upsets, and two, hasn't been able to get over that hump against the elite teams. Can they add themselves to the conversation of being with the big boys? They are going to have to beat one of the top three and handle this schedule. I think this is going to be a really good team. I think this is going to be a tough team to beat. I don't think anyone wants to play USC, but man, it is going to be tough. But I think they can get it done. I think Lincoln Riley is going to be able to cool his seat down quite a bit this year. So that I think USC is going to be a fun team to watch. And our final segment, our final game preview, and maybe one that I'm just low-key super excited to watch, is North Carolina State versus Virginia. I think this is going to be a fascinating game. It was a great game last year. There's a little bit of different faces. You have CJ Bailey back for North Carolina State that I'm just so excited for. He was electric to watch. Unfortunately, he does not have Hollywood Smothers back with him. He transferred out to Texas. And he also doesn't have the wide receivers that he had last year. So there's new faces coming in, but at least you have that consistency at quarterback with Bailey, and I think he is going to be able to put up some numbers. I also have, for Virginia, we have Bo Beau Pribula transferring from Missouri as starting quarterback. I think he is a solid quarterback. I think this is going to be a great quarterback battle in week 0 that people should tune into. The thing about Virginia is a very experienced team. They lead the FBS in just like total snaps. So this team is experienced. Though there's a lot of churn in the transfer portal, they were able to keep a decent amount of players with them. But even the ones that they've brought in are experienced. They've played before. And so I think that's going to really help them with this game. And then you look at North Carolina State, and it's just like in all the churn of the transfer portal, you're losing a lot offensively. You just kind of lean on the consistency that Dave Doran's been able to bring to the team. And he just kind of, no matter what happens, whether that is the portal, whether that is injuries, he's been able to kind of right the ship. And it's been a pretty solid success at North Carolina State. And I think it's going to be a pretty decent game this year. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Last year, North Carolina State was able to come out on top. I think it's going to be different this year. I think Virginia's going to win. I think this is going to be the start to a backup campaign of last year where they had a solid season. Maybe not quite the same success, but I think Virginia is going to carry that momentum and show that they're here to stay and compete in the ACC. And so I think that's how it's going to go down. I'm excited for this game. It's going to be electric. And that concludes our show. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment down below. What have you thought about these? Who do you have winning? I'll be back Sunday with my reaction of all of this. College football is back. I can't wait. And maybe for the Sunday show, a special guest. We'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy some football. God bless.